Hi, this is Dr. Schulman, and we're going to be doing the art integration and art enhancement video, which I really like. I make terrible art all the time. Like I love water printing and doing different stuff with mixed media and working with comics. So this one really spoke to me. I used art, and I was never into art, but all my students, they kept drawing, they kept doodling. And I was like, how can I get them to write? So I'll explain the difference between these two, but this is going to be a really good one. And if you chose it, I hope you find this interesting. So I'm sharing my screen, and we're going to go directly into the art integration and enhancement one. Remember, you just have to pick one of these to do after your lesson planning. So here's your art enhancement integration. If you click the first one, the piece pops up, and I'm going to download it so I can draw all over it. This one's just going to be a shorter video, but at least be really useful. So here we go. Art integrate. What's the difference, right? What's the difference between these two? What is art enhancement? What is art integration? So here we go. So art enhancement and integration assignment will challenge you to develop two different teaching activities that infuse visual arts, dance, theater, music, and or multimedia directly into your mathematics lessons. Art enhancement utilizes elements of the arts to motivate and add engagement into teaching content standards. So these two things are enhanced lessons. So we're using art. Oh, I'm gonna show you a third one that's on here. So this one, creepy clowns and powerful pumpkins. I also did swole reindeer and terrifying snowmen. I did horrific turkeys. So I did this for every holiday for my students. So what did they do? If you answered this one correctly, 1/2 to the -5th. What is that? Basically flip it over so it's 2 to the 5th power, which is 32. So we're using these years. And I would just walk around, and my students loved it because I got to put their pictures all over the walls. And it's basically the answers created the picture. So same thing for the clowns. I usually gave them two choices. And what was great about it is I got my students to actually draw the pictures. This way, I could give them a little extra credit, and students who weren't the best in math got a shot to like create something that everybody would use and be really proud of. So I would make these box worksheets, and all the ones I originally made were by hand, but I wanted to recreate one for everybody, and I got a past student who actually one of the ones who drew for me because I keep in touch with all of them. I don't know, I just really like teaching and building those relationships. So she was like, "Oh, I'd love to do one graphically." So she did one of these on her iPad. I logged three. What to the zero? What to three to the what gives you a one? So 3 to 0. So these crazy eyes. And I could walk around, see the pictures, and they got to put their pictures all over the walls of my classroom, and they loved it. And I thought it was really fun too. So they got to do the math and make a cool picture. So that's art enhancement. What's another version of art enhancement is these pixelated images. Oh, and here's the actual article. I've used this a ton of times. So the way that I use this was different. So this is the way that this person used it. I actually had my students create their favorite pixelated picture. So here, I can show you what that looks like. But this was the article that I first saw it, but I took it and I flipped it and I made it harder. So once they did this, they used their actual picture for lines of reflection, lines of symmetry. They used it for rotational order. So they got to see if their picture would fold. They saw if it was dynamic symmetry, and they used it. They took their model and be like, okay, slide your model. That's translation. Flip your model over. That's reflection. Dilate it. Make it really big. So here, I can, let's go to my drive and see if I can find it. Pixel Party, I think I called it. If I can't find this one, I'll look in another drive. Here was the page. I actually added a bunch of pieces to the bottom of it to make it nice and broken down for them. All right, let's go into another drive and I'll pull up pixels. I have so many things. I guess I could look in one more, see if we can find these pixels. Oops, sorry. An alarm. My bad. Oh, here's one. 8-bit pixel party. All right, so this were the actual slides from when I made this forever ago. I'd first teach them about art, symmetries, patterns, tessellations, midpoints. I covered all these artists. I did Escher, Pollock for fractals, Malevich for shapes, Calculus 3 topology, and Farsi for sequences. So we did tons of cool art. I just remember I was all into it for this class. So they got to find an 8-bit image, choose their favorite colors, get to coloring. I can't draw, but coloring is easy. So they just got to color them in just like this, and make their own picture. And I did the examples for them. And then we talked about what made art beautiful, like what made an image beautiful. So this is just regular symmetry. This is dynamic symmetry based off the Fibonacci sequence, and it depends, but which makes it more pleasing to you is interesting, right? And I actually went back to Dubish, who actually has a formula for what makes specific shapes more pleasing to our eyes, which is really cool. It's a system we're using horizontal vertical reflections. The E is for equilibriums, and then you subtract any incongruities. So anything that's a little bit off makes it less beautiful. And also, we use dynamic symmetry a lot. That's what makes faces beautiful. We see it everywhere in Grecian urns, seashells, hurricanes, and really pretty people's faces, right? So once they have their picture done, they got to do lines of reflection. And then this is rotational order. So 360 degrees, it looks the same. This would be, well, 360 divided by 360 divided by 3. So this is every 120 degrees. This is an order of 2. So this is every 180, it looks the same. And this 360 divided by 4. So every time we go 90 degrees, it looks the same. They practice with lines of reflection on theirs. I teach them what rotational order looks like, using cool shapes. And it's how many times you spin around and it looks the same. And they did it with patty paper. So they like drew a little dot and spun it around. And as many times as it looked the same, then they divide it by 360. They got to do some practice. Obviously, I started with the Jewish star. I always talk to my students about being Jewish. I know that's always a hot button issue, but I'm not ashamed of who I am and where I came from. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's every 60 degrees it matches. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 360 divided by 5, that's every 72 degrees it matches. So I just think it's really interesting for students to do this and then do it with their own. All right. Then they got to dilate it. And I know I showed you pictures of it. So they got to make really big dilations. And dilation is just making it bigger or smaller, but it's exactly the same. They got to pick a scale factor. They got to draw on giant graph paper, and then they got to make it. So I know I showed you some before. I think it was on Making Math Functional. Yeah, this is a really old. Can't remember what. I've done so many talks, but this was a talk about it, and this is how they came out. See, here's an original. This is how it came out super big. There's the original burger, and there's the giant burger. And look how big the Mario is, and the Ghost, and the Mr. Ricci. Well, I don't know if you like Venture Brothers, but this is a Mr. Ricci for Venture Brothers. Me and one of my students were very into Venture Brothers at the time. It's an Adult Swim show. I don't know if you're into it, but cool. So let's keep on going. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an offshoot of what we're doing, but okay. On the other hand, art integration. So this is the other idea. So I guess I might as well go like that. So art integration, I'll bold this. And here's art enhancement. So art enhancement. Oh, I said I was going to show you one more. So was Addison? I think it was Addison. It was like my favorite book from the 70s. It's called Algebra. What's it called? It was Algebra something. Oh, here's another one of the creepy clowns. Oh, this one is like all perfect. So use this one. This one I actually like all spaced it out, so it's all on one page back and forth. Oh, but it's the same thing, but this one is exponents. So, oh, I'm trying to remember. One of my students was like, "Oh, can I just make one?" So I made one of them for exponents for something they were teaching, which is cool. Okay, so let me see if I can find this. I think it was called making. No, I think it was called Addison. I'm just gonna see if I can find it. Here it is, Addison. Sweet, making practice fun. This is my favorite one, and I might as well share this with you. If the owner of the book isn't super excited about it, I've already shared it with so many people. So we're putting this in here. Or making mazes, connecting dots. I have tons of mazes too, connecting dots, or we just put connecting dots, or connecting dots to make a picture. So this one is probably my favorite one. This Addison piece, it's to me, it's still great today. Let me insert this link. There we go. So here it is. Where are you, Addison? Well, I'll just put it on the new page. So here's the book. I have the whole book, right? Do I have the whole book? Yeah, all 124 pages. I've got lots of books. I know it was made in the 70s. Well, but it's still great. So it goes through everything. You got crosswords. This makes a cool saying when you've got all the words together, message and code. I'm looking for the art ones, but look, it's got adding, dividing, decimals. Here's one of them. So ready? Really basic dot to dot puzzle. You draw it, you make the cool picture, right? And you connect the dots. This makes a cool saying. There's hidden messages. This one is cool. Is this Battleship? I know there's Battleship in here also. Here you make a cool koala bear by adding decimals and dividing fractions. So feel free to do one of these or use them for your class. Students love it. I like making my own pictures because then I can do things like terrifying turkeys or evil snowmen or swole reindeer. But here you don't have to make it. They're all done for you. Isn't that nice, right? So thought I'd share this one. Now, art integration, on the other hand, you actually teach the art. So you teach the art standards and the math standards in tandem for an interdisciplinary format. So an example is having students create their own tessellations. Now, I've done tons of tessellations with my students. Here's a picture of one. That was their tessellation. It's just slid, but it's nothing crazy. These were some of my students like actually working on stuff, but the tessellations is great. So they're pretty straightforward, but in order to do an art enhancement, you actually have to teach them what a tessellation is. You teach them about the art standard and then they create it. So this one is a rotated tessellation, which is great. This one is a reflected tessellation, which students like. So they're either translated, which is a slide, reflected, which is a flip, or rotated. Now, I know this is a really young standard to make these images, but it really gets students into using tools, using scissors, cutting, measuring with rulers. They got to draw the square on the index card. They got to cut it out. They've got to make a design, and then they put it together. So when I had them rate each other's. The best one that came out was oh my God, it was so cool. It was half was Spawn, half was Venom, like this really cool comic. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. A reflected tessellation of Spawn and Venom. Beautiful. So, but you're teaching them about the art standard as well. So this is based on work of MC Escher. Students are tasked to learn the grade 8 geometry standard, understand congruence and similarity using models, transparency or geometric software, verify experimentally the properties of rotations, reflections, and translations, while also teaching the grade 8 visual art standard of presenting and sharing. So at the end, they have to do the presenting and sharing. So they have to present on it and they have to share and rate each other because rating is one of the art standards. So that was one that I did. So it was like grade 8. You've got the geometry standard, but you also have like sharing and rating each other. So as a class, we created a rubric for the projects. How will we create the rubric? What do they need to be considered to be complete? So what was a completed tessellation look like? How much design did they have? What would make for a high grade, a low grade? If art is subjective, what will show mastery for a grade of building tessellation? So as a class, we made a rubric for it and we graded it, everything based on it. And we came up with this beforehand. So there was like, we all knew what we needed to do. So that's a really good way of developing and applying the criteria for evaluating a collection of work for representation. Oh, and there's a whole video. So if you want to watch somebody a lot smarter than me talk about it, they have a video of the difference between integration and enhancement. All right, so what do you got to do? If you want to do this one, a definition of both arts integration and art enhancement, and in your own words, tell me the differences. So all you got to do is say, what is art integration? What is art enhancement? And what's the difference between the two? When would you incorporate these teaching strategies in your classroom and why? Be like, I'm going to use enhancement when I'm doing reviews. I'm going to do integration when I'm teaching a new concept. I don't know. What are the benefits and drawbacks to each approach, right? So there's got to be benefits and drawbacks to each of them. To me, the main drawback for this one is you lose time talking about the math for this, but a benefit is really breaking them out of what a normal math class looks like. Don't be afraid to redefine your math classroom to make it the funnest place in the school. All right, so you do the intro, then you get to do an art enhancement. So the name of an arts enhancement activity that teaches math content with an engagement and motivating strategy based on visual, dance, music, theater, and multimedia. The dance ones are fun. Like the dance ones that I always use are the I think it's the dance for graphing. There's also dance transversal that finishes a lot. Yeah, here's one of them. There's a bunch of these things though. Some of them are more fun than others. I just found a random one, but there's tons of these things. Cool, absolute value. Natural log of x. So there's tons of these, right? Cubic function, right? So dancing is fun. There's also dance transversal, which I've seen people do. I don't really like it because I'm not like I don't know. Everybody has their own stuff that they like. Oh, this is a paid one, even worse. So you just draw this and you just yell them to jump from spot to spot. I help my friend who teaches elementary school like notes, like every good boy does fine and FACE for the G clef. And I actually had him just draw it just like this with the big tape on the floor. And the students would jump from note to note, which was really cute. He showed me a video of it. It was great. So there's dance transversal, which is really fun. Okay. Let's keep going. Oops, I am here. So use a common core standard for the math content, the objective of the activity, the materials needed to complete the activity, clear and detailed directions, the grouping structure of the arts enhancement. Is it alone, in groups, or some combination? a rubric for how you will grade it, an exemplar student response, a check for understanding, a formative summative, and a rubric for your grading. So you have to, a rubric or method for how you grade the formative summative activity. Okay, so everything you would think about for a lesson without the plan, right? So that's what would be for the enhancement, but then you also get to do integration. So for the art integration, you could use the same standard as you want, or a different standard, but basically you have to use a Common Core standard and then one of these. So you have to teach either a dance standard, a media standard, a music standard. I also have, there's different ones. So there's ones for harmonizing instruments, composition and theory, traditional, music technology, if you want to do theater or visual arts. So you actually have to do a Common Core standard as well as a art standard within it, a national art standard. So clear, detailed directions, the grouping. It's basically the same thing as above. Just how do you make it a good lesson? Check for understanding throughout the activity, a rubric for grading, an assessment to make sure your standards were met. You got to make sure both standards were met. Now, I've done lessons like this before. Let me see if I can find any of them. Because I have a bunch of these music standards that I've done in the past. I don't know if I still have them. Like I showed the lyric stat project before, which my students really loved. But oh, it's okay. So I'm sure I have the PowerPoints somewhere. So where I just used math and I helped them figure out the sine waves of the notes that they were singing, or we did the BPM of their favorite songs, which was really cool. So but work on however you like, right? Like whatever works. The visual arts that I've used, I had them do the Desmos art project before, and students really love this. I've seen some really good ones. So these are the finalists. So this is all made on the graphing calculator. Very cool, right? So you can open the graph and see what the winners were. And every year there's certain winners and certain losers. But like if you're a finalist, I'm sure if I hit play, I can watch all the fancy stuff happening. So this is one of the finalists. It looks really cool. So these are all the equations that made it. We got leaves, we got sorcery, got the bandana. So they're really good. This was the 13 to 14-year-olds. So it goes from ages 13 all the way up to adults, but they're really cool. I think they're really interesting. And they do it every year. So this would be a cool way to like give them a chance to like make some really cool art as well as notice that these are just the colors. They made up their own fancy colors. You can make colors, you can make sounds, you can make action. The mountains, there's this equation. That's how they made the mountains. Oh, there's two mountains, and there's the gradient of the sky. So I don't know. I just think it's really interesting that what is it, 12-year-old made this? Wild, right? So feel free to have fun with it. But there has to be an art standard as well as a math standard that you're teaching at the same time. Most important part for me is the reflection. So what was it like to create the two activities? Tell me how it was for you. Why'd you choose a specific art domain for each of your activities? Like, what are you doing? Do you like to do visual arts? Are they dancing? Are they doing music? Which of the strategies, enhancement you prefer? Like, which one do you feel like you're going to use in your teaching? What are the benefits to arts integration? What are the challenges? And this is the best one. So how would you alter this assignment to make it better? Which ways would you modify it to better assist future educators to learn about it? So basically, if you were to teach this, right, you were to teach about arts enhancement integration, what would it look like? I guess I can make another one. You were to teach arts enhancement integration, what would the lesson look like? So that's what I'm really curious about, how to make it better. These are the adherence to NCTM, and these are the process standards, and these are the in-test standards that you get to learn by doing this assignment. And I'm not going to forget to do the rubric this time because I forgot last time. But I hope this was useful and interesting for everybody. So let's look at the rubric. This is a 15-point assignment. The first part is formatting. If you're not going to do APA, that's okay. Just make sure you've got what? Good sections, proper headings, no spelling, word choice, or errors. That's what I want to see. Your introduction. Did you have cited definitions? Were you effective in distinguishing between? Somewhat clear, distinguishing? Was it difficult to understand? Did not have it. Then you have your art enhancement activity. Then you have your arts enhancement integrated activity. So basically for these, do they have the directions, the standards, all the components of directions, clear directions and assessments? How did it work, right? Do you have all these components or not? And then how was your reflection, right? Were you clear about what would make this better? What would make it easier or worse? But that's pretty much it. There's the 15 points, format, intro, both activities, and how'd your reflection go? So I hope this was good, fun for you. I'm probably gonna do one more of these videos today, but let me know if you have questions.